So we were not a local television station like WPBF or any other stations here. We were a regional sports network that covered the professional teams primarily in Philadelphia, but college also, some high school, that kind of thing.
Right.
But the climate has changed so much because there's such a dramatic reaction to the cord cutting, as it's known in the cable industry. We were owned by Comcast.
Okay.
In the cable industry, where people aren't getting cable like they used to, and they're seeking other avenues, which I do too now, by the way. I don't have cable. I have other avenues. And so they began to change dramatically what they did, and that meant cutting a lot of fat and a lot of meat. You know, the meat included people who did the work, who were talented, gifted people who really had a great big role in creating what that network was for about 18 years or so, 18 to 20 years. And so they approached me one day and said, "We like your work. We'd love for you to stay, but we're going to have to cut your salary." They gave me a dramatic figure that wasn't going to work for me.
Right.
So, and again, I had lived in Philadelphia for many, many years and thought I would, stay there forever. And I like Philadelphia. It's a great city. Enjoyed living there, raised children there, and what have you. But I knew at that moment I was not going to, in all likelihood, not going to stay in Philadelphia. And I was okay with that because I knew I could not accept what they were offering. And so, to fast forward and not get too long-winded, over the course of the months that followed, I decided I wanted to leave sports and go into news because I had interest in news. As times changed, Ken, I got to a point where things in the news world began to interest me in ways they didn't when I was in my early 20s, mid-20s, 30s. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I think I'd evolved to a point where I developed other interests, not just in my day-to-day followings, but also in things I wanted to pursue. So I said, well, I'm going to become a news reporter and news anchor. That's what I was going to do. I was going to leave sports behind and to get to the finish line now, WPBF contacted me. I applied, of course, for the job, for many jobs. They contacted me, brought me down for an interview, offered me the job. I took it, and it's been a phenomenal life transition that I could not have predicted a year ago. I certainly would have known I would have been here, but it's been so much more rewarding than some of the things I'd even done in sports for a long time.
Wow.
Because it's new, it's fresh, and it's challenging in a way I wasn't used to. And I think I needed that at this point in life.
It's funny because you're coming at it from the television environment, and I'm coming at it from the radio environment. Being fire service Army after high school, I went in the Army for 3 years, and that was back in the late 70s. So I took my turntables with me, and they sent me to Alaska, and that's where I started DJing in the dorms.
We're in Alaska.
Anchorage, Fort Richardson. Yeah. And I figured, it's snowing outside, I can rehearse and practice and get my skills up, and I ended up learning the business side of it, how to get government contracts with the club and doing that. And what I didn't realize was throughout my military career, my followers at every base knew who I was from the nightclub scene, whether it was local or on base. So after 3 years in the Army, I got out and went in the Air Force, where I did 10 years in the Air Force.
Do people do that? I don't know
Not
that many who's done that.
Not
Really?
many.
Wow.
There's very few of us that have done that.
That's unique then. That seems unique to me.
And one of the reasons was what you touched on. The things that I experienced in the Army, some were good, but I had insight. Once I started playing at the Air Force nightclubs, I started getting familiar with the Air Force people. And for example, we're living in the Army, we're out in the woods, 50 degrees below zero, living in a tent. When I go to the Air Force base, they never leave. They're dressed like they're going to corporate America.
Okay.
And I think that's what the Air Force afforded, was a corporate America sense. Now, I did take a page from my drill sergeant in the Army. He said to me, don't be complacent with one career. Try as many as you can. And that's what I did over my military career. So I ended up at the American Embassy in Rome, Italy.
Oh, wow.
Doing postal, supervising a post office. And that was just based off of other experiences. In admin, I transitioned from communications in the Army. When I went to the Air Force, they said they didn't have it. They couldn't match the code. But I'm looking at the comm center and I'm going, I know how to run all that equipment. So they said, we have to retrain you. So I said, give me admin, because admin, I can get a job anywhere. And then within that, the postal field was connected to admin. So my brother, I graduated high school at 16 and went in the Army. A year later, my brother graduated high school, but he got a contract on Broadway. And from Broadway, he went to Italy.
To do what? He's a performer?
A performer. Mm-hmm. He's been there 40 years.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
So he's done television, radio, music, and everything. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to see him. I hadn't seen him. So I applied. I got accepted.
That was your motivation.
Yeah, that was my motivation. I wanted to see my brother, you know. So we were able to live together in Italy for 3 years. And I was at the American Embassy, and I ended up DJing over there, and mm-hmm. we kind of co-managed the club for a little while. It was a good experience. Mm-hmm. But then I said, you know, career-wise, my future, what is that going to be? And I saw an ad in the Air Force Times for mm-hmm. instructors in computer science. Mm-hmm. And they said, if you have a communications background, you can apply. Mm-hmm. My communications background came from the Army. So I applied, I was accepted, I went to instructor school. Nice. And I ended up teaching mainframe computers first, mm-hmm. and then PCs when the PCs came out. Mm-hmm. All this time I was DJing. Mm-hmm. And I played at a club one night, and an afternoon person heard me and came to the club and brought the boss, and next thing you know, I was on the radio. Mm-hmm. Wow. And that was, my core was, you know, I made it. Mm-hmm. It was in Biloxi, Mississippi, but I made it. And my dream was always to do radio in New York, my hometown. Mm-hmm. And that dream came true one day because I left Las Vegas doing commercial, non-public radio. Mm-hmm. And a software company, Radio Computing Services, RCS, hired me to do tech support. And that's their software you're looking at.
Oh, really?
It's a state-of-the-art software for broadcast radio, owned by iHeart.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I was doing tech support for radio guys around the world. And at first the call started out, I'm having a problem with the software on my computer. Over time, it became, I don't know how to use it, I need training. Mm-hmm. And they were not providing the training. So I said, here's an avenue that I'm good at, that I'm doing for them, but like you, there was no room to grow. Mm-hmm. They didn't have any minority supervisors or managers. And I said, it's time for me to do something different. Now, fortunately, I got a phone call, and I met with a lady on Staten Island, which is my hometown, our hometown. And Staten Island is known for the mob. Okay. So when you get a call to meet somebody for dinner at an Italian restaurant in Staten Island, you kind of want to. But it turned out to be a blessing because she was actually one of the managers of a company called CD Radio. Mm. It was a new service that was launching in Manhattan, and it was a satellite radio service, which is now Sirius XM. Wow. And I went there, the first African-American program manager, so I helped launch it.
In the early days.
In 1999.
Very early days, wow.
99. So again, my whole thing was, now I want to give back. Mm-hmm. So how can I do it? I got to train. So I got a 501c3, and the first people we taught were fifth graders in Manhattan, the fifth grade after school program we started. And just to see the kids' eyes light up when we introduced them to radio, or if we gave them a video camera and told them just have fun with it. And that was my inspiration. And so when I left RCS last year, on my anniversary, I said, that's it, I'm gonna step away, use my retirement money, mm-hmm. and try to launch a business here in West Palm. Because when I got here, I was like, wow, the weather's great. Right. There's a lot of art and entertainment facilities, mm-hmm. but nothing downtown. And Clematis Street, as you know, is hustling and bustling. They always have events, mm-hmm. but there's very few, you don't see youth walking around with reporters. And I said, this is where I want to put my office. Can't afford to rent on Clematis, so we're here. Mm-hmm. And the reason I'm here is the guys in the other office I want to introduce you to, they asked me to come on board with them. And right now we have a couple of separate rooms, but our goal is to own this whole, raise some money and get this whole suite so we can have recording suites, classrooms, and teach a variety of things. Mm-hmm. After school programs, summer camps, and things of that nature right here downtown West Palm Beach and connect with the schools. So I'm just happy you made it down here to see it, because you're the first person I've spoken to about this on the television side. Or, because, you know,